Hey, how's it going, guys? So I'm gonna be checking out another Halo lore and theory video, and basically I should have watched this one first before watching the other one, which was 10 facts you may or might not know about the Mjolnir armor. But this one is 10 facts about Spartan-IIs you might not know. So welcome back, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. So in the last video, which was 10 facts about Mjolnir armor you might not know, I do remember at the beginning of that video that installation did say, like, if you checked out my last video on the 10 facts about Spartan-IIs, so basically in chronological order, like what he created and posted, this video should have been before the other ones, but I hope it doesn't affect anything or like I didn't miss anything. But either way, I'm still gonna check out the video and see what it is. So 10 facts about Spartan-IIs. So this is all I know about the Spartan-IIs before we jump in. Dr. Halsey is the one responsible for creating them. I know for a fact that John 117 is a Spartan-II, and Blue Team are Spartan-IIs, even though they wear like Mark V armors or something like that. But Spartan-IIs, compared to like the other Spartans, they're like the ones that are augmented and just like the one taken as children's, and they had to undergo like intense training and rehabilitation and conditioning and everything. So that's mostly what I know. So my guess is, like, in this video there may be like some things I do know and some things I don't know, just like the Mjolnir armor. But I'm really curious to see what's going to be shown. So without anything else, let's get into it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today I wanted to do something a little bit more casual, a little bit more fun, to really get back to the lore of Halo itself. And I feel like there's quite a lot of potential for this particular format, and there's a lot of things I'd like to cover, but I'm also going to leave it open to you guys to decide on what happens next. But in any case, today we're going to be looking at 10 things you may or may not have known about certain specific areas of the Halo universe. We'll extrapolate each of the 10 and actually explore the lore surrounding each of these 10 points. At the end of the video, make sure you tell me what you want me to cover next, and be sure to let me know whether you did or didn't know these 10 points. So with that said, let's get on and look at 10 things you might or might not have known about the Spartan-IIs.
Alright, let's see what you got for us, installation.
Spartans were just 6 years old when they were conscripted.
Yep.
Now this goes somewhat hand in hand with the fact that they're called Spartans. Spartan boys of ancient Greece were taken at the age of 6 and began their agoge, the compulsory state-ordered military training, as ancient Spartan culture wanted to ground the fact that every single Spartan was a warrior first. In this same vein, children at the age of 6
aware of already,
were kidnapped
like
from their
ancient,
families and
ancient
forcibly
Sparta.
conscripted into the Spartan-II program. However, on top of this, to ensure that parents didn't start to question where all of these children from all of these colonies had disappeared to, the children were replaced with flash clones. Clones that were grown over a very short space of time, and as such had fatal genetic fragmentation. Shortly after being swapped out, these cloned children would succumb to the genetic fragmentation and would pass away from what would ultimately be called strange and unknown genetic conditions that resulted in death by natural causes. This gave the parents of the children some degree of closure, while also freeing the Office of Naval Intelligence up to be able to then use these children for the Spartan program and not really have anybody turn an eye towards them and start asking questions. Most definitely one of the darker things that the Office of Naval Intelligence has done. Spartans were originally made to crush the
Halo 4.
insurrection. It's rather terrifying to think about, but these massive 7-foot-tall Spartan super soldiers wearing a half-ton of Mjolnir-powered assault armor were not created to save humanity from an unknown alien threat. They were created to destroy the insurrectionists, an organization of rebels who stood against the United Earth government ruling of the inner and outer colonies.
Okay, so that I did not know. I guess Spartans just had to adapt to like who the enemy was and defeat them,
so that they could have agency over their own lives, and the resources that their planet produced remained on the planet to feed, sustain, and support the population already on the planet, rather than the United Earth government very much exploiting particularly the outer colonies for resources that they had to feed the inner colonies. This rebellion would rise and fall away numerous times over the centuries, but at the particular pitch and cadence that this rebellion was at the turn of the 26th century, Dr. Elias Carver published what he called the Carver Findings, a deep study into civil unrest and likelihoods of outright rebellion that would either ultimately destroy humanity altogether or shove us back to another Stone Age. The results of this study being that the insurrection was just around the corner and a decision had to be made as to how to stop this from happening. Ultimately, the decision was to create a unit of super soldiers that could enter into the insurrection and cut it out like a scalpel rather than the blunt instrument of sending in the UNSC Navy. Considering the speed, strength, and raw lethality of the Spartan-IIs, the very idea of them being pitted against other humans is genuinely the thing of nightmares. Even to the point that the insurrectionists themselves had something approximating a nursery rhyme with a cautionary tale about the Spartan II super soldiers. Again, consider that John 117, at the age of 14 and only a few days after his initial augmentations, he killed 3 ODSTs and severely injured a 4th.
Halo Fall of
Reach. He hadn't even been given his Mjolnir armor yet.
That movie reaction's on the channel, guys, if you want to check it out. What's the third one?
There were originally meant to be 300 Spartan-IIs. There were massive risks associated with both the Spartan program and Project Mjolnir, but there was more
just
at
like the
risk
Spartans at Thermopylae in the movie 300
findings that would ultimately result in full-blown civil war amongst the insurrectionists and the UEG. So as such, when the project was originally green-lit, the Office of Naval Intelligence and UNSC top brass granted the full funding for up to 300 Spartan II candidates. This, however, was not to last. Funding shortly thereafter was reduced dramatically, meaning that the amount of Spartan candidates that could be brought on was reduced from 300 to only 150 candidates. At this stage, the program was identifying viable candidates for the Spartan program. As Halsey set out in her early studies, the most viable subject for the Spartan II program had to be a prepubescent child, because, in her words,
children's minds are more easily accepting of indoctrination, their bodies more adaptable to augmentation. The result
I do remember that.
Was the ultimate soldier.
They had finally managed to identify 150 suitable candidates for the program until funding was reduced once again to support only half of that number, resulting in spaces for only 75 children. This is why, despite there only being 75 children who were acquired for the Spartan program, many of them have assigned numbers which are greater than 75. For example, in the case of Fred 104, John 117, or Cal 141. These numbers were assigned to the candidates based on the order of which they were identified. And as an additional bonus fact to this one, of the 75
I did not know about that,
about
the number
for the Spartan II program, only 33 of them actually made it through the augmentation procedures. The rest of them washed out, which basically meant that they were either crippled beyond use in the Spartan program anymore, or they died. Although it is worth mentioning that of those who died, most of them were actually cryogenically preserved, in the hopes that they could be rehabilitated at a later date and their augmentations repaired in some degree and hopefully field them as fully fledged Spartans years down the line. The Spartan candidates did, at the end of the day, represent a significant investment on the part of the Office of Naval Intelligence, and the funeral that took place, where they committed the bodies of the fallen to space, were actually empty coffins, mainly to give the surviving Spartan-IIs some degree of closure.
Oh, I didn't know that. So, in Halo Fall of Reach, those were empty then.
Exactly.
Speak of the devil.
Why they were kidnapped. This course of action did come with inherent risks. However, it was deemed by Dr. Catherine Halsey that the risk of lying to the children about why they were taken would be significantly greater. Halsey's AI Deja suggested that the candidates be told that their parents were taken and killed by pirates, or a plague that devastated their planet. Halsey refused this course of action, deciding that the truth was much better because if they learned the truth later on and learned that the UNSC had lied to them, they would turn on them. Deja persisted and suggested a selective neural paralysis which produced a targeted amnesia. Again, Halsey refused this on the basis that it would be dangerous enough with intact minds, let alone minds that may have memory loss that's leaking into other parts of the brain. She instead told the 6-year-old children that they had been called upon to serve and that they would become the best that we could make of you. She explained that while it would be hard to understand, they could not return to their parents, that Reach would become their new home, and their new family would be their fellow trainees. While this was an extraordinarily difficult truth to tell these 6-year-old children,
I do remember Halsey saying that
necessary.
in the Halo Fall of Reach movie.
Spartans never die.
They go
This is
MIA.
actually a piece of Oni propaganda, known as Oni Directive 930. When the war with the Covenant was at its worst, morale across the UNSC was at an all-time low. In a desperate attempt to bolster morale, the Office of Naval Intelligence decided to go public with the Spartan-II program when they had initially chosen to keep it highly classified. They did so as a means of propaganda, to tell heroic stories of single Spartan super soldiers standing against waves of Covenant and winning, to broadcast to the masses that the war was going significantly better than it actually was, and also likely as a cautionary tale to any would-be insurrectionists, despite that by this time most of humanity were fighting desperately to survive, let alone fighting each other. Only Directive 930 had a knock-on effect of meaning that no Spartan could ever be listed as KIA, or killed in action. They could only ever be listed as MIA, missing in action, or WIA, wounded in action. This is so that it could be said that no Spartan ever died in combat, as if knowledge got to the troops that even Spartan super soldiers were dying on the front lines at the hands of the Covenant, morale would drop through the floor, and we'd be staring down into the abyss of the very real possibility that humanity were about to lose the war and be made extinct.
Okay, so it's a morale issue.
Spartans experience time differently during battle than normal humans. This is of direct consequence to one specific augmentation that the Spartans received, and that is the superfibrification of neural dendrites. This is an augmentation that led to a 300% increase in the reaction time of Spartans, which could be even faster during battle when the adrenaline is pulsing, and even faster still when using Mjolnir-powered assault armor.
Okay, so I knew about
As a
this fact
consequence
just
of
a
this,
little
the
bit.
Spartans at the height of battle would experience something akin to bullet time. Bullet time is actually a visual effect or visual impression of detaching the time and space of a camera or viewer from that of its visible subject. It was actually first used in the original script of the film The Matrix, in relation to certain visual effects where they used multiple cameras to take split-second captures of a scene from multiple different angles to give the impression of time slowing down significantly or standing still altogether. So it'd be probably more accurate to reference it as being something more like time dilation, where time changes its speed relative to how fast you're travelling. But in this particular instance, it's the speed of the nervous impulses moving through the Spartan's central nervous system that's causing them to experience time at a slower rate. It's basically like overclocking the brain. For example, at times of increased adrenal output, such as life-threatening situations or the fight or flight instinct, your brain is effectively sped up by the adrenaline, your heart rate is increased, the amount of oxygen in your blood is increased, and as such you perceive things around you faster than you would normally. This is why people who have experienced this state say that time seems to stand still but be rushing at the same time. The Spartans experience exactly this, but dialed up to 11 due to their augmentations, and it was affectionately dubbed Spartan
Okay, so this
time
does explain
by
a few
Kelly
things.
087.
Like the
And was
reflexes
since
and their
adopted
movements
by
and
the
everything.
Spartans at large. This is why in moments of extreme stress on the battlefield, Spartans can move at speeds that are utterly inhuman, because they're actually experiencing the world around them at a significantly increased rate. It would be interesting to see this mechanic come into play in some regard in the future of the franchise.
It actually does. But then again, I think they
Spartan-IIs
kind
have
of did
an
it in the
estimated
TV show
lifespan of
series.
At least 250 years. Spartans are already a genetic cut above the rest of humanity.
250 years?
They demonstrate specific gene markers that make them compatible with the Spartan program, and that coincides with them being basically the creme de la creme of human genetics. But in addition to this, the Spartans received a plethora of genetic therapies during their augmentations, some of which elongated their telomerase on their DNA, as well as other cellular regenerative therapies that all have the causative effect of meaning that a Spartan lives significantly longer than the average human. Now again, it is worth noting that in the 26th century, humans can get to a much older age than they can currently. Some of this is due to the amount of cryosleep that an individual can experience during their time, as cryosleep was needed for long journeys between colonies in the 26th century. But in general, the advancement of medical science in the 26th century has led to humans having much elongated lifespans. Sergeant Johnson was in remarkably good condition in the year of his death, and he was 78 years old. The previous Commander-in-Chief of the Office of Naval Intelligence, Margaret Parangosky, at least to our best knowledge in the year of 2558, was 97 years old, and it is at least assumed that she's still alive in the current events happening in Halo Infinite in 2560. Although explicitly stated for a newer generation of the Spartans, being the Spartan-IIs, the gene therapies that the Spartan-IIs received are based directly upon the same gene therapies that Spartan-IIs received. And in the official Spartan field manual, it is stated that the fighting years of a Spartan are expected to exceed a century. If you then use that as a measuring stick based on the active career of modern day military personnel, and then extrapolate out the amount of years before service and the amount of years post-retirement that a human on average has, it comes out to above 250 years. There is still a vagary surrounding this particular number, but what is known for absolute certain is that the Spartan-IIs do live significantly longer and at better health than the average human.
Okay, I did not know that. Wow.
Spartans can control Mjolnir through thought alone. Now, while it is widely accepted that Spartans wear the most sophisticated suit of powered assault
I didn't know
armor
they
in
could do it by
existence,
thought.
most assume that in order to move Mjolnir powered assault armor, the wearer need only move one of their limbs and the armor will detect the muscle impulse in the skeletal muscles, interpreting it as a voluntary motion, and then moving the armor's respective articulators in order to match that motion. And while yes, there are some reactive circuits within Mjolnir that do exactly that, the true origin of Mjolnir's movement systems come from the Spartans' brain themselves. In preparation for wearing Mjolnir-powered assault armor, the Spartans' neural interface is upgraded to a specialist neural interface known as the Spartan neural interface, which is a much wider bandwidth connection, and also attaches to much more of the midbrain than the average neural interface. When a Spartan with this Spartan neural interface and a suit of Mjolnir are put together, the Spartan need only think about moving, and Mjolnir will detect this intention from within the brain before it's even left the brainstem. This signal would then ultimately travel down the spine of the Spartan out to the respective muscle groups that are needed for that particular motion, which would then stimulate the muscle into an action potential that would lead to motion. However, there's a limit to this known as nerve conduction velocity, and this is basically the limit on how fast electrochemical signals can travel through the nervous system, even the augmented nervous system of a Spartan. But before any of this takes place, Mjolnir has already detected the impulse from within the Spartan's own brain and has converted that signal to a digital signal that it then sends through its own internal circuits.
That is really advanced.
Moves through circuits at approximately 90% the speed of light. Thought to motion happens before the Spartan has actually even felt the effects of their own nervous impulses. So it is said that on one level the Spartan moves the suit, and on another level, the suit moves the Spartan. It goes even further than this in that the Spartans
works
can
hand in hand
control
with each other.
most of the aspects of their heads-up display through simply thinking about it. Indeed, just focusing on another nearby Spartan opens a direct private communications channel. Straining to see small details at a distance directly engages Mjolnir's zoom function. And in the books, entire operational functions of the HUD system, the BIOS, and the suit itself are entirely controllable by the Spartan simply thinking about it.
Okay, so that I did not know. Or kind of did not
Spartans
know.
learned to interact in spite of their armor. Spartans wear a half metric ton of Mjolnir-powered assault armor that covers every single square inch of their bodies.
I didn't know it was
Whilst
half a
in
ton.
more modern lore, each unique Spartan is identifiable by the number on their chest and their own unique permutation of Mjolnir-powered assault armor. It wasn't that long ago in the lore that all Spartans wore exactly the same permutation of armor with no external markers for who was within the suit. Female Spartans were frequently believed to just be male Spartans due to how powerful and fast they were, and because the suit itself was androgynous. It didn't have any particular shapes or identifying features that suggested between male and female sexual dimorphism. So to all but the most learned people who knew the Spartans intimately, all the Spartans were just these huge, armoured, faceless warriors. But nevertheless, the Spartans still looked upon each other as family, and thus needed to develop ways to communicate and interact with each other
Just like
through
Blue
the
Team.
armor in a more personal way, without necessarily revealing any portion of their skin or taking off their helmet. This was possible by a plethora of different hand signals, which at face value is a tactical decision. Using hand signals to indicate certain orders and directions and flanks and enemy positions is relatively commonplace in military personnel, specifically special forces. But there were a few physical gestures that Spartans shared that were completely and utterly unique to Spartans and indicated a higher level of personal interaction. Nearly imperceptible nods to each other. A tiny flick of an index finger to indicate that they should open a private comm channel. Even knocking into each other or brushing past each other is not a gesture that a Spartan would do by accident. In fact, this particular gesture was a way of one Spartan asking another if they were okay, checking that everything's good. There was even what's known as the Spartan smile. Since they could not reveal their
Spartan
faces
smile.
to each other on the battlefield, and their gold mirrored visors meant that you couldn't see their faces within, Spartans learned to stroke two fingers across the visor of their helmet roughly where their mouths would be to indicate that they are smiling or that they are happy. The most intimate version of this is when a Spartan
I never
walks
heard
up
that
to
before.
another Spartan and does the gesture on the other Spartan's visor roughly where their mouth is. This is tantamount to almost a Spartan kiss. It's a very intimate way of saying that one Spartan is happy to see another.
Huh. I never knew that. That one's new.
And last but not least, the Spartans were ID'd for the program by trace DNA on discarded vaccination needles. When candidates were still being found for the Spartan program, there was one surefire way that the UNSC could very rapidly track and trace the very specific genetic markers that were required to be a candidate on the Spartan 2 program, and this was through the Outer Colony Vaccination Program, a free school vaccination program specifically in the Outer Colonies and conducted by the Colonial Administration Authority. Halsey noted that while many of the colonists would avoid registering births and deaths and even paying taxes, almost all of them would take advantage of a free vaccination program. And as a direct result of this program, they held the largest database of human DNA in existence.
Hey,
All that needed
if
to
it's
be done
free,
then
people
was
will
have
come.
all of these DNA samples scoured for these specific genetic markers to identify who they came from, and then track those individuals down to their respective colony, while also using this trace DNA as the basis for the Flash clones. I would not have liked to be the person who had to go through all of those DNA records in order to find those genetic markers.
Yeah,
But it also
dude, that sounds
suggests
like it's
that
gonna
since they
take a
were only
while.
looking for at maximum 300 target individuals for the program, there could be hundreds if not thousands of other human beings out there that have exactly the genetic markers required to become a Spartan 2. And this may or may not be exactly why some Spartan 3s and Spartan 4s outperform others of their class, as these individuals may just have exactly those genetic markers, and thus when going through the Spartan programs,
So
and their
just like
respective
John
training
117 when he did the coin
augmentations,
toss.
their perfect genetic markers allowed the greatest expression of Spartan traits attainable for that particular class. And as one last bonus fact, of all of the Spartans, John 117, the Master Chief, the greatest of all Spartans, is actually the most average of Spartans. He's average height, average build, average strength, average intelligence. He is basically your average Joe, or average John in this case. The law would have you believe that the only thing that the Master Chief excels at is his luck. I have my own personal opinions on that, but I've already covered that before. But nevertheless, there are your 10 things that you may or may not have known about the Spartan-IIs. Tell me how I did. Were there some there that you didn't know?
He did amazing.
All of them. And are there any that I left out of this particular list that you think should be included if I revisit this again in the future? Again, pop your comments down below and be sure to tell me what subject of Halo you want me to cover next in this 10 Things series. And until then, thanks for watching.
Alright guys, so that was 10 facts about Spartan-IIs you might not know. So out of those 10 facts, I knew 7.5-ish. Now the reason I say half is because he did mention things that I did hear or did like watch in the past in like movies and other like Halo lore and theory videos, but half of the fact I never heard it before. So I say that was like really good to like hear for the first time and like learn. But either way, some of these facts I did know, some of them I did not know. But what about you guys? Did you know all 10 of these facts? And also, just like he said, if you guys have any additional like Halo like facts, put it down in the comments below. I would love to like read them and learn about them, because like I said, I'm still kind of like getting into the Halo universe still. I know I've been like watching so many like Halo lore and theory videos, including like the game cutscenes and the movies, but still, I mean, it's really fun to learn, and there's always something to learn. But either way, this was a really great video. And again, if you guys have any information about Halo, especially Spartan-IIs, put it down in the comments below. I'll get to them when I can. So basically, I hope you enjoyed this video, because I really enjoyed this one. This was a really great video, but it didn't really like matter if I watched this one first or the Mjolnir armor video first. But installation, again, he did a great job with this lore and theory video, and I'm really excited to see what else he has. So again, thank you guys for watching. Keep an eye out for more content. Check out my other videos I have on my channel. And again, thank you guys so much for your continued support in this channel. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you guys are having an amazing day or night wherever you guys are, and I'll see you guys next time.